Rick and I were standing there watching these guys puppeteer this amazing Jack Nicholson puppet, from a Head and Shoulders puppet that was transforming before your very eyes. You know, it was a practical effect. No CG, none of that stuff.
Ninjas do exist, and sometimes they come in the shape of legendary movie makeup artists. And my next guest is exactly that, a legendary movie makeup artist and a ninja. If there's a job in Hollywood that is just too daunting for anyone else, you call one man. His name is Ed French. He gets in, he gets out, and he creates magic while he does it. In today's segment of an interview that I had with the legendary makeup artist and prosthetic designer Edward French, he speaks about everything from the writer's strike to starting out in Hollywood as a young actor to working on the underrated werewolf movie starring Jack Nicholson, Wolf. In further segments, he speaks about his amazing career working on movies like Terminator 2, the cult horror classic Sleepaway Camp, as well as Blood Rage. I've also got to mention that it was absolutely wonderful speaking to Ed French. The man is articulate, he's friendly, he's generous, and he possesses a vast amount of knowledge on everything from movies, makeup, and horror. So if you like what you're about to see, then let me and Mr. French know down in the comments below. And if you want to see more of this fascinating chat that I had with this really incredible and interesting individual, then be sure to subscribe to Den of Horror. I hope you enjoy. Very nice background, by the way. Very interesting. You know.
This is my messy office, yes.
Yeah, I have one of those too, as you can see. I tried to make mine look a little bit flashier, but at the end of the day, it's just a bunch of junk, you know?
Well, no, but it's the Den of Horror, so, you know, we have to look like we're in the den.
Firstly, I just want to say Ed French. I mean, that is one heck of a cool name. It sounds like a character from a Quentin Tarantino movie, you know?
My wife years ago said when I became a makeup artist, you should drop that actor thing. You're just Ed, like Rick Baker or Rob Bottin or any of the other people. All those makeup artists always have the, you know, Fred and all that stuff, you know. So right. I do that. Yeah, I do that when I'm a makeup artist. I wear a couple of hats, you know, and when I sort of juggle the two when I'm narrating the books, I try to sound a little more literary.
Welcome to the show. It's really such a pleasure to have you. I can't believe that you actually responded to my Instagram message. It was really like an honor. I was like, I actually thought, should I play a little bit hard to get or should I? And I couldn't help myself. So I was just like, yes, let's do this.
Well, I'm glad you did. I mean, I don't do this all the time, you know, and I'm sort of fade like old General MacArthur. I'm kind of silently fading away. So it's nice to have your attention. It's nice to know people still think about me, you know. This is a strange time. I'm semi-retired but now with the writer's strike, I'm not doing anything at all. A lot of us are just waiting out this strike before we can go back to work.
What is your opinion on the whole writer's strike and how does it sort of affect the industry actually?
I don't think writers get enough credit. I think we can't do anything without them. And I don't believe they've had a raise in some time. I'm not exactly sure what people are paid, but it's a difficult gig. Sometimes these writers, I know because I've worked on a show called NCIS where I've spoken with some of the writers. They write something and then somebody else takes it over. How do you get paid for that? I don't know. That's pretty wild. What is that? Getting news things on your side. You're gonna have fun editing that one.
Right. But you actually started out as an actor?
Oh, it's such a windy road. I started out in radio, and I wanted to be an actor, so I left radio and worked in the theater for a while, and then around 1980 or so, I was looking at the fan magazines, the monster magazines. I always loved those things. And I saw that they were making horror movies. A guy named Tom Savini was the splatter king. And I thought, well, you know, maybe I could do that. So I started sculpting masks as a hobby, and I displayed them at a place called Paramount Theatrical Supplies in New York. And a protege of Dick Smith, the late great makeup artist, John Caglione, saw the mask and hired me to come in and do the lab work on a movie called Amityville 2, The Possession. I was in the right place at the right time, you know.
Wow.
The acting thing wasn't happening. So I went with this, and I was very enthusiastic about it.
A quick online search on Ed French would render, of course, the makeup and special effects designer behind films like Sleepaway Camp was one, and Blood Rage. But how did you get into this world of entertainment? It feels like you came at it from all sorts of angles. I mean, what is the story of Ed French?
Yeah, I think of myself as an entertainer. I started I wanted to entertain. And I think I was attracted to special makeup effects because it was so entertaining, you know. I mean, you could get into it. You could be the star of the show, and garner a lot of attention. Whereas as an actor, it was a tougher road. So I fell into makeup effects, and when I started, all it took was getting a couple of credits, putting some pictures in a portfolio, and you were on your way. Now, makeup effects people are ubiquitous, right? I mean, they're everywhere. But I was in New York in 1980, 82, and I was a big fish at the time. And then I got on this thing called Tales from the Dark Side. I did the pilot episode. It was a syndicated TV series, and it was the perfect fit. I got to make monsters every week. And it was fun. And, I was just reflecting this morning. I passed over a job a few months ago. It was for a medical simulation, kind of a hospital film. And that was actually how I started. I got in touch with a medical advertising firm in New York City, and I would do medical simulations, holes in people's feet that they were putting a dressing on, or some sort of skin disease or something. And that was a good way to get into makeup effects. But I blew off this job a couple of months ago. It was just huge, and I really did not want to deal with it. It would require a huge crew, and something that I've always disliked about the business. I love most of it, but something I dislike about it is the all-nighters you do. In order to, in the beginning, I would literally do everything. I did do a job a year ago where I broke my rule about the all-nighter. It was a commercial for an insurance agency. They wanted this silly gag where this guy lifts up his shirt at a football party and he's shaved his chest so that it looks like he's got a squirrel there. Yeah. So I took this job on, and I couldn't figure out how to do it. And I had to show them something the next day, and I wound up staying up all night trying to figure it out. That's what it takes.
How to put a squirrel in a guy's chest.
Yeah, how to make this little thing look like he'd shaved his chest in the shape of a squirrel. I don't have it handy, or I'd show it to you.
The things you do for your art, right?
I suspect these jobs land in my lap because they go to other people and they don't have a clue. I usually end up solving a problem to create what I used to call makeup illusions. Makeup illusions. Now I'm makeup delusions. Something just went bling. Is that okay?
It's behind you. It looks like your laptop just went on.
Oh, okay. Right. Pay no attention to that laptop behind me.
But you were speaking a moment ago about the writer's strike and how you feel that writers are underappreciated. Someone once told me, and I'd like to get your take on this, if you had a movie with a bad script and a good director and good actors, the chances are that the movie is at best going to be average. But if you had a great script with an average director and average actors, you could probably turn that into a very good movie just based on the quality of the writing. What do you think of that?
I think that's perfectly true. I'm trying to think of an example of a mediocre horror movie that's, shouldn't call it mediocre. There was a movie years ago called Carnival of Souls, completely made by amateurs. It's a kind of a haircut on Ambrose Bierce's Occurrence at Owl Creek Bridge, but done contemporarily with amateur actors and fair to middling photography. But the story is so well told. It's such a great idea that it works. Night of the Living Dead is another one. George Romero's Night of the Living Dead is another one. They weren't necessarily professional, super seasoned actors, but he could pull that off.
With your vast experience, how would you say the makeup designer contributes to the storytelling process in the medium of film?
You're trying to create something that was on a page and visualize it. It's really a very collaborative thing with the rest of the film. You have to get something that sort of matches what the film's about, what the style of the film is. You obviously, as a makeup effects artist, you are a filmmaker. So you are really contributing to the look of the film, to the effect of the film, particularly the early films that I worked on, which a lot of them weren't very great. They were made for video and they were made very quickly. But the makeup was extremely important in terms of telling the story.
It sounds like there's a lot of...
Does that make sense?
It absolutely makes sense. It sounds like there's a lot of kind of on-set innovation from the makeup designer's point of view.
Well, everything has to be planned very precisely. In the beginning, when I started in this business, producers or directors would turn to me and go, "How much time do you need to create this thing?" I don't hear that anymore. The story I just told you about the medical simulation and the guy who took it on and worked with a crew 24 hours a day, sculpted a thing in one day that should have taken days. They don't take that into consideration. And the people that work today in makeup effects, they're ambitious and they will take it on.
Awesome.
But I got spoiled in the beginning. I got to learn on the job. I made mistakes, but I was given time to do what I needed to do to the best of my ability, and I'm very grateful for that.
Right. Who was there? Someone who sort of took you under their wing? Is there someone that you look up to as a mentor? Someone that kind of showed you the ropes?
I never had a mentor. I really jumped into the deepest part of the pool in the beginning. I just went for it, and like I said, I would learn on the job. I'd stay up all night if I had to figure out what I was going to do and how I was going to do it and how I was going to get it done on time. So occasionally I would call on the phone. I talked to Dick Smith or a guy named Carl Fullerton, who was on the East Coast, and ask a few questions. But most of the time I worked on my own. I began to build up some momentum career-wise, and I got some traction as a makeup artist when I moved to Hollywood. That was a great move for me and my family. It was a necessary move. I wanted to get very serious about working in better films and so forth. I got in the union very quickly, which was a great blessing for me. And also, I immediately started working with very talented people like Greg Canham. I worked with Rick Baker.
I'm probably going to kick myself for asking this, but which movie did you work on with Rick Baker? I mean, the guy's a legend.
He had a makeup artist that assisted him on a lot of films, Greg Nelson, but he suggested I come in, and I worked a few days on Wolf with Rick.
I really loved that movie. I think it's one of those underrated movies, and I thought it was an approach to the whole werewolf mythology. It gave it a different kind of twist, and it placed it in a slightly different genre, which I thought shed a different light on the whole werewolf thing. What was it like working on Wolf?
Well, it was only a few days, and I can't even remember the name of the actor. There was a young actor that we put into a werewolf makeup for a few days, and then the only other memory I have on set was there's a company, I don't think it exists anymore, called Amalgamated Dynamics, and they actually made a puppet of Jack Nicholson that's turning into a werewolf. And I remember wondering why Rick didn't do it, but it fell into Amalgamated Dynamics' hands, and Rick and I were standing there watching these guys puppeteer this amazing Jack Nicholson puppet, from a Head and Shoulders puppet that was transforming before your very eyes. You know, it was a practical effect, no CG, none of that stuff. That thing needs to be fixed. was the question?
Hey everyone, that's not it for myself and Ed. This conversation continues in the next segment. And if you have any questions for the incredible Mr. French, then drop a question down in the comments below. And also be sure to check Ed French's narration podcast here on YouTube. The link is in the description. So for all of you out there, I invite you to pull up a chair and join in the conversation. On that note, stay safe, stay happy, and most of all, stay happy.
Gaze into the abyss.